strange thing about my life is I didn't grow up around boats. Like, I didn't grow up around the water. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, dry trees, mountains, all of that sort of stuff. And when I graduated high school, I ended up moving to Seattle. And I went to the University of Seattle to get my electrical engineering degree, which is what I thought I really wanted to do at the time. I was going to school. I was living in a little place called Kirkland, Washington, right on the edge of the lake. And my brother Brett came to visit one summer, and he said, "Brian, you live on a lake. Like, what the hell? How can you not have a boat?" And I said, "Bro, that's a very good point." So we went right on Boat Trader Online.
Brian,
and
turn it up. Nobody back here can hear you.
You guys can't hear it?
No.
Okay, hold on. Let's crank it.
Crank it. Thank you for saying something. Check.
Master.
Check.
How's that?
Perfect.
Is that better? Okay.
All right.
So let's see where to start off. So, living in
Seattle.
On the lake, brother comes to visit, says, "Why the hell don't you have boats?" Go to Boat Trader Online, find a boat that happens to be about a block away from my apartment. Went and looked at it, knew nothing about boats except it looked like a boat and there was no holes in it. It was a Catalina 22, one of the ones with the swing keel where you can crank the keel up and then you can pull it up onto a trailer.
Wow.
And so it was a couple $1,000. We bought it. The guys who owned it drove down to the boat dock. They helped me put up the mast, and they showed me a few things for an hour, and then they said, "Okay, have fun." And I ended up sailing that boat around for like 5 years. Just sailed the hell out of that boat and did a lot of stupid things that you shouldn't do in a boat, but because of its size, I was able to get through it, so it was a perfect starting boat. After that, I was working, and I was into the whole sort of corporate thing, and I was living my life, and I had house and cars and business and a good job, and my whole future was mapped out for me for just this number of years. But I wasn't really feeling content with it. It wasn't what I wanted to do for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and end up retired at Microsoft in some mansion on top of a hill thing, with all these TVs in every room. That just wasn't me. So I decided to change my life, and I really became enamored with the idea of traveling and the idea of traveling on a boat, because to me it seemed like you could be self-sufficient and you could go to these exotic destinations, yet you could still bring all the comforts of home with you because you're bringing your house, which is sweet. So I started researching it, and I read, at that time there was no sailing vlogs. I mean, this was like, early 2000, something like that must have been. 2003, 2004. There was no sailing vlogs. There was a few blogs. There was Cruising World magazine, and there was like boat shows, and that was about it. But I became, and books of course, but I became just addicted to it, and I started like soaking up, and if you guys or any of you preparing to go cruising now, you might be in that stage. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're just like sucking it up as much as you can.
Thank you.
And I really became addicted to it, and I put together a plan and figured out the finances, what I could afford, and I did simple things like, I stopped driving to work, and I started taking the bus, which saved me gas and it saved me parking. Instead of going to Starbucks on the way and getting my latte and a muffin, I would make a real pot of coffee, and take that to work. And I did the numbers on it, and the money I saved just from those two things in 1 month actually pays for an entire month of my living expenses. So, I think it's definitely possible, and it's definitely doable. And once I made that decision and the plan was made, the rest was just like, okay, how are we going to get there? How are we going to do it? Got the boat, made the big turn, sold the house, quit the job, turned it over to the partners, and made the turn south, where I ended up in Mexico, where this guy came on board.
Yeah, so while Brian was doing his corporate thing up in Seattle and Washington, I was going to university in Orlando, not too far from here at UCF, and I was going to school for environmental engineering. which I still don't understand what that means. But I was doing it, and I really loved the science of it, and I loved learning, but something didn't feel right. Like I was just going to school, I was kind of just treading water. I was doing it because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to finish high school, go to university or college, go get your job, and then that was it. And you do this kind of stuff when you're retired. And one summer I got into scuba diving because the ocean, for some reason, was always a special place for me. Very connected to the ocean. So yeah, one summer I got my diving certification, my scuba diving certification. I went down to the Keys, to Isla Morada, and I got a job down there. And I started working as a dive master at the Florida Keys, the Boy Scout base. There's some people from the Keys here, right? Yeah. So you know where Sea Base is? Yeah, I worked at Sea Base over the summers, doing dive master work, and then worked my way up to instructor, and then started on boats, and then got my captain's license working on boats, and of course sailed more and more when I was down there as well. So over the years, because Brian and I kind of were in separate states during this time, I would go and visit Brian all the time. So I'd go sailing with him.
And we're like 10 years apart.
Yeah, we're 10 years apart. So, but anyways, we go sailing together, we'd go snowboarding together, we do all this cool stuff together. And one of these times I was visiting was in Mexico in 2009. And I was down there for Christmas, December of 2009. And we were hanging out, and he was about to leave to cross the Pacific. And he's like, oh bro, I think you should come with me and go to the Marquesas, go to French Polynesia. It'll be like a 3-week trip, and we'll be good. Like then you can fly back out of Tahiti, go back to school, it'll be perfect. That was 7 years. 7 years ago now. Yeah, so we did the sail, and it was amazing, like beautiful South Pacific sailing. We got to the Marquesas, and all of a sudden we were scuba diving in places that I saw in magazines, like places that where I got my diving certification from. I was looking in those magazines during my breaks and stuff. So it just blew my mind, and I realized, like, all right, this is what I want to do. I'll just make this work. I'll figure it out. So I called my dad. I told him to come pick up my car. You can have it. Good car. Your car was ruined anyway, so yeah. And then I called my university and I said, I'll be back in a couple weeks. So give me that student loan that you offered me. And yeah, then the rest is kind of history. We cruised our way through the South Pacific, and at that point we were just doing vlogs and a little bit of video. Beautiful 9-month season cruising through there, getting used to the cruising life. We got into New Zealand, and then we were dead broke. Everything was out, all the money was gone. And I started looking for jobs, and that's when I first got into the burrito technician industry. Yes. So I got a job at this little, it's called Mexicali Fresh. It's basically a rip-off of Chipotle, something like that. And it's made by American guys, and they know what they're doing, so it's really good for what it is. And one night we were boat sitting there nearby, like, you know, boat sitting, just looking for jobs, and we were looking after a big powerboat in Nordhaven there in downtown Auckland in New Zealand. And I got a call from the guys I worked with at Mexicali Fresh. And they said, oh Brady, you have to get up here. There's 3 Scandinavian girls sitting in the restaurant right now, and we're giving them free margaritas. So yeah, I put my rain jacket on, got on my bike.
So come quick.
Yeah, pedaled up there, and yeah, walk in and see Karin and her 2 beautiful friends sitting in the restaurant there.
Yep, that's very true. So how did I end up on the boat? So I had actually never sailed before I met Delos. I had been on some smaller boats before, and like bigger ones, like really big ones. But I had never been on a sailboat. I didn't know anything really about the ocean. And I was studying in Australia to become a landscape architect. And yeah, 2 of my friends asked me, do you want to go to New Zealand for a little mini holiday? And I said, yeah, why not? So we went down there. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. And we arrived, and we ended up in the Mexican restaurant. And it was real, because New Zealand is very expensive, and we were students. So we were like, free margaritas, woohoo! So maybe after many free margaritas, we ended up on this very fancy powerboat that they were babysitting. And I started talking to Brian, and Yeah. And he asked me.
Hey.
And
What's your name?
I wanted to go sailing for the weekend because they were taking Delos to another island. And I said, yeah, why not? And so we did, and that was 6 years ago now. I think I straight away fell in love with, the boat, being so close to the ocean, and just the way you live sustainably like that was for me mind-blowing, and I knew straight away I like Brian a lot too. So. Yeah, so that was it.
Yay for boats.
Yes, I did finish my degree, so I had 1 year left, so for the first year I was kind of in and out, flying to the boat whenever I had a few weeks off, so I did finish it. But then I kind of left straight away. So I don't know.
You didn't pull a Brady, which is good.